Let's go ahead and get going. Okay, so welcome to our webinar today. And on behalf of our team, we are so glad that you're joining us. And I know how limited your time is, we all do. And some of you are even joining us from the Combine. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to introduce you to our panel today. I am Katie Patterson. I'm the Senior Inside Sales Manager from Northeast Kansas. My family has a diversified farming operation with cattle, and I've spent over 20 years in ag communications and policy and working with producers the last 10 years to help with nutrient efficiency as well as water management practices. And today you get to hear from Dr. Laura Jalpa. She is a soil nutrient management scientist with expertise in developing and implementing best management practices to improve fertilizer efficiency, support sustainable agriculture. And she earned her PhD in soil and water sciences from the University of Florida. And we have Niles McGuire. He's our senior retail sales manager for the Midwest, and he spent 9 years in the ag industry, with the last 4 that are specifically focused on helping growers in the nutrient efficiency space. And Niles and his family also owns and operates his own farming operation in southwestern Ohio, raising row crops, forages, and cattle. So I want to also just share our intention today. We're just going to have a brief explanation of how Satellus works and how it could benefit your operation, breaking down some key points and questions with Dr. Laura and Niles, and then sharing a sneak peek into the data that is just now starting to come in from the field. Harvest is a little behind in most areas, as you guys know, and we want to make sure that we are giving plenty of times for question and answers. So make sure that you put your questions in the Q&A section, please, and then we will have time for these at the end of the webinar. Niles, you're ready. He's right there. He's
Yeah.
ready. All right.
Thank you guys very much. And for those who are new and haven't seen this before, we did want to do a quick recap of what Sotellus is and what one of the things that we do well at Lygos is and what Sotellus is an aspartic acid. So aspartic acid is a non-essential amino acid in it by itself, and then we take that a step further and we put that into a polymer, or which you'll hear us talk about kind of often, is maybe like a chain link of these aspartic acids. And that's what gives it the power to free up nutrients in our soil, to then also break down slowly over time to be that food source, and essentially just, the agronomy, the benefits that we want out of it, right? So once it's in that chain link, it gets into that soil profile like so, breaks down over. So at first it's binding with nutrients in the soil, which is then releasing things like phosphorus, making all kinds of nutrients more available, holding on to calcium, potassium, and magnesium, iron, a lot of these nutrients that we do need, or we're trying to essentially untie from other nutrients that we want, right? And then the secondary benefit is the breakdown over time. And then Sotellus is eventually consumed completely by the microbes in the soil, which is basically where we get that secondary food source benefit. So a lot of really cool stuff that we see out of Sotellus. If you've been in one of our webinars before, you've seen this slide before, where we just kind of a recap of everything you get to see out of it, between the bioavailability of our nutrients, chelating nutrients with a strong CEC to increase that P and K, and helping retain the water in that soil profile, being very hygroscopic, as well as feeding that microbiome side, helping increase what we want to see out of biostimulants and get some of the results that we want to see out of that. So just essentially helping create biodiversity and increase what we want to increase, which is yield and return on investment, by increasing the stress resiliency and increasing nutrient uptake along with all that. So that's the power of the polymer and everything we can do with it. So we do want to dive into what we're calling learnings with Laura, mixed with a little bit of my perspective as well. And we've got some questions that we wanted to go over. And there've been a lot of hard hitter questions that we've been receiving a lot as a team. So we'll just dive right into this. I want to, take the time to introduce Laura to the team. And So our first question for Laura is how much phosphorus can our polymer free up and supply per acre through the use of Sotellus at a quart per acre?
All right, Niles, thanks for that introduction, and I'll just go ahead and get started with answering the question. So, as most of you already know, much of the phosphorus that we apply becomes unavailable pretty quickly. If you have a high pH soils, that will bind with calcium more often than not, and in the acidic, it'll bind with iron and aluminum. Now, the important thing that we're going to be talking about is phosphorus availability and how that can impact positively your economics. As you guys know very well here by looking at the figure on the slide, fertilizer prices have increased over time, making phosphorus availability the most, hot topic right now. So when we're talking about phosphorus availability, we're talking about two pathways, the biological and the chemical. The way I like to describe how Sotellus is working with the biological pathway is that our polymer helps create, like Niles mentioned, a more favorable environment by reducing nutrient competition through its chelation chemistry. That keeps nutrients more soluble, which lets microbes do their job and improve phosphorus cycling in the soils. Now, in terms of the data we've collected, we've seen that our polymer can free up approximately 10 to 25 pounds of P2O5 per acre in those neutrally pH balanced soils. And in the acidic, we've seen more phosphorus come out in the range of 30 to 70 pounds of P2O5 per acre. Now, it's already a pretty good amount of money that could be potentially saved from not having to reapply so much phosphorus every season. But if there is any new phosphorus additions that you need to make based on soil test, then applying MAP or DAP along Sotellus can help protect those new and currently costly additions from immediately getting tied up with the other calcium or the other metal ions. So I'll leave it with every bit of phosphorus that we fail to make available for the crop, we're just leaving that money in the soil.
Yeah. Thanks. And from the grower's perspective and my perspective, specifically with some of the soils that I farm, I have really variable soils, and yeah, we try to correct some of those pHs, and we do our best, but there's only so much you can do, and yeah, so hearing kind of that wide range of phosphorus that we're going to basically be able to free up, in that variable soil types and things like that, that can really help bring up the lows and really uh, help make a field a little bit more consistent and get some more consistent phosphorus across that variable acre. We'll go ahead and dive into the second. That's some of my take on that. We'll go ahead and dive into the second question here, and this is an interesting one because we've gotten this a lot. There's a lot of companies out there that make binding claims and other claims that put a number to a claim, and sometimes putting generically saying that across the board can be a little misleading. But at the same time, we want to be able to inform and educate the best we can. So, how strong is the chelation on cationic nutrients, and like the relative strength from highest to lowest by nutrient?
Right. Next slide, please. All right. So yeah, excellent question. One of my, talking about cation exchange is probably one of my favorite topics to talk about when I teach a class. So let's go through this figure together, starting from this right here, where Niles already mentioned, Sotellus is polyaspartic acid, and we have these carboxyl groups, and this is what gives Sotellus its ability to attract metal cations. So the metal cations that we're talking about are these right here, plus the micronutrients. And how strongly, Sotellus will get attracted to these metal cations, we have a ladder. So the most strongly attracted is going to be iron. Then we'll jump into that calcium and magnesium, which is more moderate. Then that potassium and sodium, we don't really affect them as strongly, but they're there and they will attract, other things along with it. So here we have these complex partners. So we were talking earlier about how phosphorus will bind with that calcium in the high pH soils, and then in the low, we have iron. So these are the partners, right? The magnesium sulfates, the calcium sulfates that'll bind. So when we attract these metals, we get these benefits of that phosphorus and that sulfate coming out. And then here's just like a little example of like calcium binding with Sotellus, forming a complex with it, and then increasing phosphorus availability. But the main thing I want you guys to take away from this is that we're trying to prevent nutrient antagonism from happening, right? So that way we can have uh, these complexes dissolve and get that phosphorus.
And trying to prevent these, as a grower, I'm trying to get everything I can out of my field and how much we're applying and putting in all kinds of different micronutrients in the starter and then again in the side dress and everything that we do. It's kind of easy to prevent. It's kind of easy to create antagonisms, with everything that we are doing. So hearing that we can help prevent some of that antagonistic effect and so maybe some of that negative response, nutrient response, right? That's amazing to hear. That's what we want. That's what we're here for, is to hear those facts from you, Laura, and also to continue to do a better job. So it's exciting to hear that Sotellus can do that, and also explains on why we see some of the results that we do see, which we're going to get into here. So Katie and I we're gonna start teasing out some trial results here also. And Laura, thank you so much for everything. I'm going to change the layout here back again. So, as everybody knows, and like Katie mentioned earlier, we are starting to get some data in. We are a long ways away from receiving all of our data, especially since there are still some guys who are harvesting. A lot of guys have just finished up harvesting. So, there's been a lot of stuff that is still rolling in, but we've got some exciting data that has rolled in that we wanted to share before our next webinar, where we're really going to dive into some of those case studies and dive in on why we worked where and a little bit of a deep dive into a lot of this data that we're going to receive over the next 6-7 weeks. So but really what we kind of wanted to show is I feel like is that we're creating some consistency in our crops. So on the left, on the tailgate, at the very bottom of this picture is the treated ears of corn, and we followed this. We followed this field from beginning to end, which is a lot of fun when we can see a 24 bushel increase, and we watched that field from the beginning of the season to the end of the year. So, and basically what we saw in consistency in root growth, bigger root growth from the beginning, and this was an in furrow application. So when we could see that this was having an impact season long, great things to see. So we saw consistent root growth, and then later on we saw consistent plant health, just through the nutrient uptake and things like that. And then we saw that consistency in ear set, ear size, consistently less tip back, and it paid off big on this specific trial. This is definitely well above our average, but we wanted to highlight it. We wanted to highlight it, and definitely wanted to, um, you know, it was just a really fun one that we had and out of Iowa. And it's fun when you can see these kind of results from the beginning to end. So the next one we had was in Tennessee. And this one was a 5 to 6 bushel increase. And then kind of same thing, what we wanted to talk about was just that consistency and kind of helping create some consistency in some variable soils. But this was a 2 quart with herbicide pass, 50 versus 56 bushel per acre, and a lot of fun stuff and a lot of fun results that we have rolling in. And I'm going to pass it on to Katie to continue with some other crops that we have, and let her show some of the other fun stuff that we're working on and some of the other fun results that we're getting.
I gotta unmute myself, y'all. All right, we're gonna All right, we're going to talk alfalfa, where we had some really impressive data that's good news for dairies and feedlots that goes beyond just the ROI of perspective. We're not only increasing that tonnage, but also the quality. So this was in Waterloo, Montana. 2 quart per acre was applied after winter dormancy, and it increased the tonnage by 700 pounds per acre. So very pleased with those results. We're going to take a little bit deeper dive here as looking into the quality. And these results are from the Dairyland Labs. And it showed that there was a very notable increase in protein content, very important, as well as those significant gains in the relative feed value by 16 and 17 points. Satellus has also helped increase that milk production by 232 pounds per ton. So these are great wins as a whether you're a producer looking to increase your tonnage or quality overall. So Satellus brought in net profit of $44.60 per ton. This grower was very pleased, as you can see here. So. All right, and we're going to talk some specialty, and we're going to go out to California, where our colleague Eric is, and he shared this field that he has been following this trial the whole way through from Madeira, California. This is a seedless grape variety, and you can see throughout this progression a much better canopy and how much area is shaded versus the control. And Eric shared that there was much more uniformity to it, as well as the additional berry growth. And they saw healthier foliage, and even on the edges of the fields versus controlled, you could see the health. And he also said that the control had some yellowing and wilting, and the Satellus was more nutrient dense because you can see here that the yield increase was 12.25%, but when you also talk about the quality increasing by 1.2 points, they had a total of 14% increase. So, pretty exciting, and there's also going to be more specialty that will be featured in our next webinar. Just wanted to share that we have many trials out, and Niles said it perfectly. We're just starting to get them to come in, so make sure that you are for early January. We'll be sending out the information because we're going to be featuring our data after we receive it, and our technical agronomist, Nick Vandervoort, will be analyzing it and then presenting. So looking forward to that. And I want to remind you guys that we offer a performance guarantee, and we know that it is challenging during these times, especially agronomically, and we're afraid lots of times to try something different, right? And so that's why we want to know you to know that it's safe to try, because if you do not get 2 times the ROI, we are going to pay you for the price of the product. Okay, so you're out nothing to try Satellus, and just as a reminder, we average a 3 to 6 times ROI. Okay. We just wanted to tease you guys a little bit and make sure that we have plenty of time for questions and answers. So we're going to go ahead and get into that. And I know that we do have questions that had already come in our Q&A. So I'm going to start with this. Is there an ideal pH for the maximum release of phosphorus? Laura, do you mind taking that?
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, when it comes to any nutrient availability, the range we really want is to be between that 6 to 6.5. That's usually the optimal for phosphorus. So once we start leaning and getting closer to that 7, that's when calcium will take over. And then once you start dropping below that 6, that's when the aluminum and the iron will start complexing with the phosphorus. So I would say like 6, 6.5. Don't go too much beyond that if possible. But like I said, or like Niles mentioned, sometimes it's not that easy to to fix that pH quickly. Sometimes it takes time. So using our product can help bridge that time to like get you that P, and then whatever fixes you need to make, you have that extra time.
Yeah.
Gonna follow up into
So
that, Niles. So how many pounds again can we help release with
yeah.
phosphorus?
So that range was like from 10 all the way to 75 is what Laura had mentioned. And so I would say probably think of that, as a slightly tighter range that you're going to see most often, or probably like a 20 to 40 or 20 to 50, depending on where you lay in your pH. So yes, is there an ideal for pH maximum to maximize release? As far as the pH in our soil being available at 6 to 6.5, and then beyond that, once your pHs are kind of beyond that, that's where Sotellus could actually kind of reach into those much higher numbers to help essentially fix or remediate that calcium binding with that phosphorus, or the magnesium binding with that phosphorus, and kind of remediate an issue. And so it's kind of as far as, is there an ideal pH for maximum release of phosphorus in accordance to Sotellus? Um, Sotellus is going to help fix that if the soil pH is kind of out of whack, or leaning one way or the other.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm just going to continue further now. So, what are the best? What ways can you apply Sotellus, and is there a best time?
Yeah. So right now we're talking a lot about soil, soil applied, right, in furrow 2x2 with liquid fertilizer, things like that. When we're talking a lot about these soil bound charges and things like that, we also have been going on foliar, the soybean data, that was a foliar pass, right? So being that our product is a nice carbon source, things like that, we have reasons, we have the there's multiple modes of action that we're working foliar also, and not just soil borne. So, or soil applied, I should say. So yeah, so in furrow 2x2, any type of kind of liquid fertilizer pass, we could blend well with that. And then any herbicide or fungicide pass, we're going to blend well with that as well. We blend very nicely in herbicide and tank mixes. We've had some tremendous results, even one up in Michigan where they did split applied a quart in furrow, and then came back in a quart with their herbicide. And so yeah, extremely flexible application. And what's going to work best for the grower is going to kind of lean on what you're already doing, and what that whole program looks like, but extremely flexible.
Very good.
Uh, it, it- Go ahead, Katie.
All right. When we're tank mixing with fertilizer or crop protection products, is there any best management practices? And I can share this. So, it's always good to perform a jar test. I know we don't always do that, but it's best to tank mix with products with the pH above 5 and below 9. And when you add Sotellus first, that helps to tie up those heavy metals that can interfere with any of the protection products. But it mixes very well. And so it's been very positive. So
Mhm.
and I have another one that just came in, and these keep coming in. So um because I want to just follow up with the specialty ag as well. What is the best method and results for specialty ag crops? And that answer is for the spoon feeding approach, initial application of 2 quart per acre, then 32 every 2 to 3 weeks as you're feeding that. And I know that a lot of those are through irrigation, and that is an excellent way to apply, and it helps. Just something to keep in mind is that Sotellus really does help with reducing scale and cleaning out the lines for irrigation. So, um, how about any experiences in mixing with biologicals, Niles?
Yeah, so actually, one of them that I had mentioned up in Michigan was with biology, a live microbe nitrogen fixing type product, and then yeah, so we mix extremely well with biologicals. We have some very complementary synergies with them. So we're going to help hold the nutrients that the biology is helping immediately make more available. We're going to help also, you know um, reduce that nutrient antagonism, like Laura had mentioned, and helping hold nutrients where they need to be, also releasing some nutrients that they are going to want to then feed on. And then as we start to break down, after we have a 45-day half-life, so 45 days, you're getting that chelation effect. And then the next 45 days after that is when it starts to really be consumed and broken down by the microbial activity, where they're then consuming that product and still kind of ramping up their activity and keeping them robust and working for us. So, yes, that great question.
Yes, very good. Um, is there any potato and tomato data? Yes, we will be having more of that in January. So I know that it's done very well in tomatoes. So, okay, I have a little more specific. I have a soil pH of 8.2 and high and some alkaline spots where nothing grows. What can we expect to see from the Sotellus treatments and maximum rates in furrow um, to help?
Um, well, I would say, whenever you have I call them like stressful soils, or like those alkali spots that you're talking about. Like we've mentioned about that, how I described it was like that favorable, comfortable environment where, the crop can take up the fertilizer, right, that you apply better than not. So if you have like a saline soil or stressors, will help out with that. But in terms of treatments, this deep placement, I don't think would help because you want that placed right near the roots, right? That's where we really want to apply our Sotellus. Anything to help with those spots, I would say acidify. That's apply if you're applying chloride-based fertilizers, which don't help you at all, do sulfate-based or ammonium-based or anything that can acidify. Because the only thing we really care about is that root zone area. We don't need to acidify the whole soil, just that area right there.
And if there's more specific questions, we love to help break down and truly help you tackle the issues that you're facing on your farm specifically. So, a great question. The approximate cost per acre, Niles, it's very reasonable. So, do you want to share that?
Yeah, so that can range. We but our full recommended rate is 2 quart to the acre, around $11 an acre. And that's, we have been, you know, our average at that last year's average was around a 4x with that. So as far as, as far as when I say that could range, I mean, we do have some success and some people going down to a quart, or they're splitting and they go down to a quart with intention of splitting that later. So there's multiple ways that somebody can tackle it on their operation. So, but yeah, also on the tomato and potato data, yeah, Matthew will have some. So.
All right, there's one here that says, can Sotellus help with drought tolerance? Yes, as Niles had mentioned earlier, our polymer loves water. It's very hygroscopic, because it's negatively charged. It's going to help hold on and make that help keep that moisture a little bit more available. And I am in more drought-prone areas, and I always say, if it's just able to help provide a little more nutrition and moisture, even if it's just for till that next rain. What about one more week to be able to hold off or allow you to do not to do one more pass, if you can cut one of your irrigation passes out, because it really does like water and helps hold on to it as well. So we really are going to be hoping to dig down more into that this next year. Laura, do you want to add anything to that?
I mean, I agree with the hygroscopic that we would, maintain moisture a little bit longer, right? So I agree with everything you've said. Yeah.
Our current distribution, yes, we on the website, you can see who carries our product, and so ligus.com. And if you need need anything, just send us a message and we will help you get set up with our partners. So we call them our partners. So, okay. And here's a great question here. Any information on improving performance of crops under heavy nematode pressure?
Um, So, I mean, most of my work has been with tomatoes out in the field. And in Florida, we have heavy, root knot nematode infestations. We normally use like fumigation for that, but what I always say as an extra preventative to, be impacted by that nematode pressure is to have the healthiest crop you can possibly have. And by that, you need the full nutrition, right? You need the phosphorus, everything to go into the plant so that it can withstand those, disease attacks, especially in the roots, right? Where we would have Sotellus placed. Uh, I don't really know if we have any data on that, but that's what I would, you know, right now hypothesize.
Okay. Niles, do you see that this really does help with crop protection and helping products to work better?
Yeah, we've definitely had that. We've definitely had we've some of our biggest or some of our partners that we work closely with, they have been applying it with herbicide passes and and with tank mixes, right? And what they've seen is reduced negative impact on crops like soybeans that might have that yellow flash after a strong Roundup and or strong herbicide pass, and we've really shown that we can kind of reduce that negative impact, while also kind of increasing the efficacy of that tank mix. We've noticed that we're getting good kill. We're still getting everything we're wanting to see, but getting better bounce back rates on our soybeans and on our crop. They come out of that pass much greener, healthier, less negative impact. And dive it. We can dive into those details. And the reason, we can continue to further dive into those in some of our case studies and everything that we're doing, that will be coming up next. So,
So
and
many.
that kind of goes right into that next question.
Okay.
I read somewhere Sotellus can help alleviate crop response from crop protection products. Can you expand on that? Yeah, and that's what we're seeing is we're basically seeing where, and we're kind of reducing that yellow flash. We with that carbon source that we have and some of that's readily available for that crop, right? To uptake and help get all that working better, right? So, and we'll get into some of those case studies as well. So, go ahead, Katie.
I was just gonna say this is more specific. We're gonna have allow for two more questions because we really want to be with our time conscious of that, and you can jump off anytime you want. But can product be fertigated on corn at the B5 stage with UAN at 1 quart rate effectively?
We are supposed to have some trial data back on that. We have not received trial data back. I mean, as far as effectively doing so, yes. As far as it being, going through irrigation lines smoothly, helping draw calcium and iron out of that irrigation line, and all of that. Yes, yes. When we should have some trial data on for some fertigation with Sotellus to share with you guys in the next webinar. So,
Yes, and we know that Eric has had a lot of success with that as well, too. So more to share, but yes, and that's why we love how flexible it is with the ways that you can apply. Okay. Do you want to take that
yeah.
question?
So Laura, I think you can help. You can help with this one, but so what is the stability of the structure of Sotellus, the essentially the polymer, in a pH in a mixed solution, going out and being applied at a pH under 6. And to my knowledge, we have no issues with that being in a pH under 6. And our polymer is extremely stable. pretty low, like all the way down to 2, if I'm not mistaken. So so if you're going out there with a pH of 4 to 6, we're a stable polymer and stable product. And Laura, please expand on that if there's anything that needs to be added.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, like Niall said, any pH range are pretty stable in that sense. And in terms of combining it to make the herbicide work best, I think we know most herbicides, fungicides become inactive when there's calcium and hard water, effects. So I think that's going to impact, the efficiency of your herbicide more than the pH itself in this, if we're using Sotellus as our compatibility water conditioning factor in this mix. So I think it should be compatible pretty good.
Oh my gosh, we had so many great questions. If it wasn't answered, we're looking to put together a blog post and be sharing that. And of course, this will be recorded because I know a lot of you couldn't join live. Totally get that. So we'll be sharing the recording out as well too. And again, go to ligus.com to see where our partners are listed. You can contact any of us. And make sure that you are watching for the dates where we are really focusing on data in January. And on behalf of our team, we thank you so much for joining us. And also want to give a special thank you to Barb. She is helping behind the scenes with our webinar. So thank you, Barb. And she leads our communications and marketing. So you guys have a great rest of the day. We appreciate you taking your time and joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.